Not sure if I need that.
Hey, welcome to Safety Net. This is a series that discusses how to keep safe, whether you're at a university campus or whether you're in the community or whether you're somewhere unfamiliar and a little bit in a dangerous situation. And today we have one of the hosts, Scott Borden. Scott Borden has had 7 years as the University of Rio Grande's campus police. He's the police chief there, in which he has come with a lot of experience in the law enforcement, and he's going to get into that a little bit. So it's my pleasure to say, Scott, thank you for being involved in this. We also have Sheriff Keith Keith Woods, and also Major Scott Trussell. They are also going to be part of the program that we're going to have, and it's going to be on a once a month. And there's going to be some really good guests that are coming in. So, Scott, I want to thank you very much for undertaking this really good show that I'm looking forward to.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And, you know, before we get into some of the topical areas, can you tell the listening audience a little bit about your background?
Well, in January, I just hit 40 years in law enforcement, and I'd like to think that's a good thing. 7 years I've been campus police chief, 33 years before that. For a total of 33 years, I was an Ohio State trooper. I was at the Xenia Post, the Lebanon Post, Jackson District Headquarters my last 11 years as one of the commanders there for the 10-county area. So, like I said, I hit 40 years and still going.
I think that's fantastic. And so, you know, some of the things that I like to find out, you know, prior to this, you know, as you said, you were with the Ohio Highway Patrol. And I bet you that would be an interesting and neat position to have.
It was. I mean, you go through different phases where you're a trooper when you're working the road and traffic, and then as you get some supervisory positions, a sergeant, lieutenant. Lebanon area around Kings Island, I was a post commander for that area, and that's a busy area, Middletown, Springboro, Cincinnati. You got Kings Island, all those areas down there. State Patrol's involved in a lot of things like the prisons. They do some investigations, all the prisons. So, and then when I became one of the area district commanders, the 10-county area, you just sort of, there's a lot of things that happen, and you pretty much see and experience everything. So,
well, you know, it's I think it's very, very important you have an active presence on campus. You know, at the University of Rio Grande, like all universities, safety is always paramount in the minds of the students, the faculty, the administration, you know, those individuals that are visiting the university. And most universities, for instance, University of Rio Grande Community College is an international school. And so as an international school, they have many different individuals from different cultures.
Yep.
And I would imagine that as you took over the position 7 years ago, it was a little bit different from working in the Highway Patrol.
Yes, it was. And it is, and it's really a gratifying position. You know, just dealing with the students and the faculty and the staff, and you know, last year or so, we've had some international kids come in from China, many different nationalities, just keeping them safe. One of the things I talk to all the parents about at the orientations is the #1 concern of all parents now when they send their kids off to college is, are they going to be safe?
Yeah.
You do national surveys that, you know, the food is important, the dorms, the education and all that, but their biggest concern is, are your kids going to be safe?
That's true. Well, let me ask you this. You know, in light of the recent developments with some of the schools, you know, with the shootings and, you know, the last one was in Florida, things of that nature. How do you keep everyone safe as best as possible?
And that's a good way of putting it, as best as possible, because, you know, things I tell the parents is, you know, if the expectation is I'm going to stand up here and tell you 100% we're going to be able to your kid safe, I wouldn't be telling you the truth. Now I can tell you I'm going to give you 100%, and my guys are going to give you 100% effort to try, but it's just a crazy world anymore. I mean, just you watch the news every night, there's something bad happens all over the place. We try to be very preventative. As you probably realized this morning, we had a active shooter
Yes.
Training at 10 o'clock, a drill where we set off, there's a specific siren tone for an active shooter, and we do that twice a year. We set those tones off today. We asked all the faculty to speak with their students in the classroom about what they would do, where where they would run to, how they would hide, and what they would use to fight. The staff members, whatever offices they're in, for everybody to look at how they would barricade themselves in, how they would protect themselves, and we do that twice a year. This May, as you remember, a couple years ago, we had the State Highway Patrol SWAT team come in and do a direct threat training on how to get an active shooter. They're coming back in May.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And you're more than welcome to be a victim again, because you were a great victim last time.
Well, let's just share with the listening audience some of the things that we went through on that active shooter. First of all, you had a number of different highway patrol people learning to actively be involved in a situation where there was a problem.
Well, the main thing is what has changed in law enforcement is years ago, when you had a bad guy, you surrounded the building with overwhelming force. Your goal was to keep the bad guy in the building. After Columbine and Virginia Tech, things like that, what they found out was, law enforcement was, while you surrounded the building, bad guys were in there hurting people.
Doing damage, yeah.
So now they call what the Highway Patrol trains as direct to threat. You go direct to the sound of the gunfire with the hopes of, as soon as they see an officer, the event will be ended. This direct to threat that you took place in, and hopefully you can take place in May, we have troopers. We've got 16 area state troopers coming, all the village police, all 7 of our officers, Meigs County Sheriff's deputies, Skagit County Sheriff's deputies, all the people that would be responding here in case something bad ever happened. So it's a great way that you got all these different departments that when they show up here may not know parts of the campus. And
yeah, that's true.
And like you find out, there's a lot of things that go on. There's injured people. There's just a lot of things going on in that training, and the State Highway Patrol is just excellent at it. Is how to get you past all the distractions and to keep on the main goal of going in to find the bad guy. Because once you eliminate that bad guy, the shooting ends. And if you get sidetracked into different things like first aid immediately and things like that, there's a potential that they will continue to harm people. So it's we're really looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward too. What they do is they use not rubber bullets but paint bullets.
Yes, that still hurt.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
As a matter of fact, while you were helping another officer, I think you got grazed with a...
Yes, myself and my lieutenant took a ricochet off a wall, and we both got hit and were bleeding profusely. So.
And I know that Mike, he's behind the scenes. Mike is the Instructional Design and Media Services Director. He was very actively involved, in his wife and a number of different individuals. And some of the scenes that I remember seeing, there were a number of us that were either pretending to be injured or that we were unconscious. And the patrolman would have to go down the hall and sort of avoid us because the shooter, the pretend shooter, was in another room holding the hostage. And so that patrol person had to make their way and help to keep everyone as safe as possible.
Well, and that's the goal, because you have to find the bad guy, and you can get easily sidetracked because if you would be wounded and laying in a hallway, when you see the police, you think, the saviors are here to help me. And then when they bypass you, you get your feelings hurt because, they're here to help me, but then they leave you. But they have to do that because they have to go and get the bad guy. And if you recall, they try to make it as
realistic.
Dramatic. Yeah, they turn on loud music. They set the fire alarms off. If you recall, some of the reports from Florida was that guy set the fire alarms off because these guys adapt. There was I thought was very disturbing is the day or two after the Florida shooting, there was a grandmother in Mississippi, if you remember, found some notes and some guns in her grandson's room, and some of the statements he made was, I've researched the mistakes of what other shooters have done, and I'm going to learn from those. I need to get the biggest body count I can get. So,
yeah.
you know, that's pretty disturbing. So that's the reason that we try to be so preventative, because, you know, the people that are thinking about doing things like this or end up doing them are trying to beat the systems we have in place.
Yeah.
Right now we have people barricade themselves in rooms, stuff like that. But what they try to do now is, like this kid apparently did, is set off the fire alarms, because you have people barricaded in the rooms, and when you set the fire alarms off, people come out of those barricades. He can't get in if they're barricaded. You set the fire alarms off, and you get no target. So it's just, the whole thing's pretty scary.
Well,
obviously.
some of the things that I've also learned as a bystander is that, number one, if there's a gun on the ground, don't pick it up.
Don't pick it up. Well,
you know, it's
and I spend an hour with every freshman 101 class. Been doing it for 7 years, and I talk to a lot of the other classes on campus, and I go to a lot of Rotary clubs and some other places around the community, and talk to them about this. Is how to look around the room and determine where you're going to run to, and you know, if you can, what you're going to use to, the door's locked in the room you're in. What are you going to use to barricade the door if you can't lock the door? Are there windows that you can bust out? And if you're going to bust the windows out, what are you going to use to bust the windows out? Can you jump out the windows? If you Google Columbine, as many kids got hurt jumping out of windows and actually got shot, because
I
you
didn't
know,
know
the
that.
options between getting shot and jumping out the window is the best option.
Well, you know, you bring up a good point. You talk about hide, flight, or fight.
Yes.
And sort of refresh my memory as to what hide, flight, and
Well, you try to.
are.
What I talk to our kids when we go, or any group I talk to, is the first option is run, because obviously if you're not there, they can't shoot you. If you look at those videotapes at Florida, you saw kids running at a fast pace across the parking lot trying to get out of there. I tell the kids in our rooms that, you know, if you have a classroom with 40 kids in there and you would hear shooting upstairs, any place in the building, if you can run out of that building, out of that classroom, out of that building and get out of the building, you've robbed the guy twice, because an active shooter has 3 goals: body count, blood, and media attention. The bigger the body count, the more the blood, the more the media they're going to get.
Wow.
If you're not there, you can run out of the room, you can jump out of the windows, anything. You've survived, which is your first goal, and 2, you've robbed him of a body count. And that's the big thing, is to survive and not give this guy his 15 minutes of fame or whatever he's looking for. So that's the run part of it. The hiding part is, can you lock the door, turn the lights off, turn your cell phones off? Can you barricade yourself in? If you can't lock the door, take all these chairs and stuff in front of the doors. You've got some closets here. Most school shootings now are 2 to 3 minutes. When they first started, they were 9 to 11 minutes before the police started to direct a threat, when they would surround the building. So now 2 to 3 minutes.
Boy, that's not a lot of time.
That's not a lot of time, and the bad guy knows that from the research, just like we just talked about the guy from Mississippi, is they know they've got 2 to 3 minutes. So they don't spend a lot of time going through closets trying to get unlocked doors and things like that. They go to the quickest targets they can get. So if you could, like for example this room, get into the closet, shut the closets, turn the lights off, make this guy look in the room and see and believe that there's nobody in here, he's going to move on, and that's what your goal is, and hope that everybody else does that.
Sure.
So that's the hide. The last resort is the fight, and that is the option when wrong place, wrong time. You're in the room that the guy comes into. It's too late to run out of the room, can't jump out the windows, can't hide, can't barricade, can't do anything.
So you're going to be shot regardless.
You're going to be shot, because if you're a true active shooter, they are going to shoot as many live people as they can find, and once they run out of live people, they will continue to shoot over and over again. If you go back to Columbine, 176 rounds were fired. Virginia Tech, 174 rounds. Sandy Hook with those 20 young kids and the 6 teachers, 156 rounds in 2 minutes and 34 seconds.
It's a lot of rounds.
That's a lot of rounds. When the first police car pulled into the driveway at 2 minutes and 34 seconds, that's when the bad guy ended his life. So that's their mindset. So your mindset has to be that the bad guy's not going to just walk into the room, shoot 1 or 2 people and say, you know, my bad, I'm even with the world now. You have to assume his intentions are to shoot everybody in that room. Virginia Tech, he went between 2 or 3 classrooms for 9 minutes and just kept coming back into each classroom, shooting people over and over again.
Oh, wow.
So what I tell our kids is fight. You pick up everything you can, water bottles, pop bottles, book bags, chairs, everything you can, and throw it right at the guy's head. Right at his eyes. If you can't see, you can't shoot. I mean, anything that you can grab, pencils, pens. I tell them cell phones, you know, because it's hard for them to give their cell phones up. But sometimes, you know, desperate people do desperate things.
Sure,
but just throw everything you can at them, because the best case scenario is you incapacitate the guy, and you've won. You've survived, and you've robbed him of a body count. Next best scenario is you just keep throwing chairs and stuff at him that he decides he's less than 2 minutes before this can be over with, and he leaves and goes to another room where hopefully those people throw chairs at him. So
that's, I call it hide, flight, or fight.
And it's all the same thing, because you want to keep a simple plan, because, you know, when you hear boom, 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 and people yelling and screaming and stuff like that, it's too late to come up with a plan. So you have to have something simple: run, hide, fight. And the big thing I tell people, and it's funny, is I'll go, you know, places and people that I've talked to in the community about this. What I always say is take 10, 15 seconds in any room you go into, any classroom, unfortunately churches now, restaurants, whatever, and look around the room and just think, if I had to run, where would I run? If I had to hide, how could I hide? If I had to fight, how could I fight? Because you've already got that in your mind, because once you hear that boom, 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 it's too late to come up with a plan.
You know, Scott, growing up, there was never a concern as far as my parents or I, you know, in grade school and high school of active shooters, and I'm sure that it happened. But there is a tremendous amount of media press. You know, if someone discharges a gun, you have all 5 of the media services right on there focusing in and doing a lot of media attention and things of that nature. And, you know, it's getting to the point where all of us are a little bit now nervous, you know, walking into any strange building when really we live in a society that is free.
I mean, it's just, I mean, how many church shootings have we had? The one in South Carolina a couple years ago, and then one in Texas just a couple months ago. People in restaurants, movie theater. So it's just not schools. Yeah, that's something that we're most concerned here with. But some of the things I talk about, you can take out in your everyday life. I mean, it's a shame that you can't go to church and worship, and you have to worry about some crazy guy coming in and shooting.
But it does bring up a point. And I listened to an NPR program in which one of the ladies was the head of one of the departments, and she said, you know, it's so interesting. We as a society get up in arms when there's a school shooting. But that weekend, there were 9 people that were shot in the city of Chicago. And she said, why aren't people also upset with the shooting there?
You know, and that's a great question I wish I could answer, because to me, I mean, you know, I spent 33 years on highway patrol and saw a lot of tragic crashes. And any time that anybody loses their life, to me it was horrific, because that's somebody's, you know, mother, father, daughter, sister, uncle, anything. So, you know, whether it's a school shooting or whether it's 9 young kids in Chicago, it's all, you know, it's all the same tragedy. So, you know, I just wish there was a way that we could all come to a way of stopping all of it. So.
Sure, and you know, we're all doing our best. Just out of curiosity, I know that the University of Rio Grande Community College, and Ohio State University are gun-free area. Let's talk a little bit about that. I'm assuming that no student, no faculty, no administration is allowed to bring on a carry-on weapon. Is that correct?
Well, there's a couple parts to that. They changed, the legislature changed some laws here within the last year or so. If you are a licensed concealed weapons carrier, you can actually have it locked and concealed on a parking lot on campus.
Oh, okay. All right.
If you are
in Ohio.
In Ohio.
Yeah, okay.
If you're a concealed weapons holder, license holder, you can actually have it in your car. Now you can't have it, each campus was given the opportunity to vote, their board of directors, on whether or not that students could carry them on campus. I know almost all of them, can't speak for all of them, but I know a great majority of them voted no on that, and this university did also, is that you just can't carry them around the campus into classrooms or walking around through the campus.
I think that's wise. Yeah.
You know, in a perfect world, the bad guy shows up and a competent CCW person stops the threat and nobody gets hurt. That's a perfect world, but there's just a lot of things that can go wrong. You've got accidental discharges. You've got, you know, when people get in fights, do they pull those guns out? There's just a lot of things that can go wrong. And you just mentioned something about not picking up a gun on an active shooter. You know, you're going to have 3 or 4 different police agencies showing up to maybe one of our academic buildings, and you could have a really good, well-intentioned CCW owner that has a weapon that's coming down the hallway after, and you've got 4 or 5 police officers that show up with the intent, knowing that people have been harmed and shot, and when they see that CCW holder, their first thought is there's a guy with a gun, and that's just a situation that the CCW person doesn't want to be involved in, and I know the law enforcement officers don't want to be involved in.
No,
so
that's true.
That's my feeling.
Well, it does raise up questions. You know, we have, in addition to rifles and guns, we also have tasers, we have knives, fireworks.
Well, obviously, you wouldn't want fireworks. The knife thing, you know, they're legal as long as they're not violating the length.
Right.
Tasers and mace, I'm often asked about, especially young ladies, because, you know, to protect themselves. We don't oppose those. The only thing I've always warned people about is you got to worry about if the person that is assaulting you is unarmed and they take that mace away from you or they take that taser away from you, you've now armed an unarmed person, and that's the thing that I always just tell them to use a little caution on.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that you know does make sense. Do you feel that we as students at the University of Rio Grande and many of the universities surrounding it, do you feel that the students are conscientious and rule-obeying people? Do you feel, for the most part, that they have we don't have to worry about them? Or
you know, speaking here, it's very rare that we have something serious here. I mean, you know, most colleges, every once in a while, you're going to have some drinking issues, alcohol issues. We don't have a big drug problem. We find, you know, every once in a while, you find minor marijuana. Luckily, we don't find the big drugs. They're all around every place.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
you know, luckily, have not got here. But I think one of the things that we do that we've talked about in the past is we try to do the community policing, and my officers are very open to helping and talking to the students, and I go to talk to all of them, and it's my hope that you know, with the highway patrol, what they teach is preventative. When you see a trooper sitting in the middle of the median and you're on 35, you slow down, because that's preventative. So my hope is my officers being out and about, myself talking to a lot of the kids and stuff, is that we're being very preventative, and we don't have a lot of big problems. So.
Well, I know that in subsequent shows, you're going to be talking about you and Sheriff Wood and several other individuals, you know, more about the safety, more about the importance of keeping vigilant, but also keeping within the framework and the law. In subsequent shows, I'm hoping that they'll talk a little bit more about some of the common drugs that we hear on the street and how to keep ourselves safe. So, Scott, I really want to thank you very much for taking the lead on this program. This is Safety Net. The host is Scott Borden, along with Sheriff Keith Wood and Major Scott Trussell. They're going to be talking about ways in which to keep safe, whether you're on campus or whether you're in the community. For all of us, I want to thank you, Scott.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you for listening.